Hey, I'm Micah, and this is Micah's Media Recap, a little podcast where I yap about whatever I'm watching at the moment. If you want to join me, you can put this on while you do your chores, your crafts, hell, even while you're trying to sleep. I'd love if you would lend me your ear for a little while. The Vampire Diaries was a teen supernatural show roughly based on a series of books by the same name. Though the first episode aired in 2009, the height of Twilight Mania, the first novel was actually published in 1991 and predates the existence of Twilight. 11-year-old me was absolutely seated for the premiere of this pilot. I loved the books at the time. Though I can see now that the changes the show made to the plot and the characters was definitely for the best. This is probably one of my most nostalgic episodes of television. I can't tell you how many times I've circled back around to it. Despite that, I've never managed to get any further in my rewatches than a few episodes into season 4 before quitting. That's why I'm embarking on this journey today. Every episode of this podcast is a commitment to watch another episode of the show, but this time you get to come along with me. Let's take a walk down to Mystic Falls, Virginia. We open with a shot of a pitch-black misty forest and a super dramatic voiceover from one of our main characters. We haven't officially met him yet, but Stefan Salvatore says, "For over a century, I've lived in secret, hiding in the shadows, alone in the world. Until now, I'm a vampire, and this is my story." As soon as he's done speaking, it cuts to a couple, Brooke and Darren, according to IMDb, driving home from a concert. Some musician the guy compares to James Blunt, a very 2000s reference. The road is surrounded by woods on both sides, and it's late enough that theirs is the only car in sight. Unfortunately for them, they're too caught up in their conversation, and the thick fog enveloping the area, to avoid the dark figure directly in front of them. Brooke barely has enough time to scream "watch out" before they barrel into this mystery man. He rolls over the hood of the car, and the couple skids, barely keeping themselves on the road. Darren tells Brooke to call for help, then jumps out of the car to go check on the man they hit. When he crouches down to check the man's pulse, Darren whispers, "Oh God," to himself, giving us the signal that, oops, the mystery man is a goner. Not to victim blame, but perhaps if Darren had been doing a little less complaining and a little more paying attention to the road, he wouldn't be ending his night with vehicular manslaughter. Camera also takes this moment to zoom in on the ring the dead man is wearing. Some sort of silver family crest on a sizable dark blue stone. Remember this, because it'll be important later. Darren pulls back from the body, probably about to head back to the car, when, with such speed that every motion blurs, the dead man sits up, grabs Darren by the throat, and sinks his fangs into Darren's neck. Unaware of what just went down, Brooke gets out of the car to tell Darren there's no signal. Much like the signal, though, there's no Darren to be found. She calls out for him a few more times before getting spooked by the sound of something slamming against the hood of the car, and turning around to see, you guessed it, Darren with his throat ripped out. Screaming at the top of her lungs, Brooke makes a fatal mistake, and instead of getting back in the car, she takes off running down the road. What we know that she doesn't is that this mystery killer is much faster than humanly possible. Brooke barely gets any distance before he's swooping down to take her away. In terms of vibes, aside from the cheesy voiceover, what's happened so far feels very much like an early season supernatural opening scene. I wouldn't be surprised if we cut to Sam and Dean cruising down the countryside in the Impala, discussing that missing couple. It's not quite what we're getting with this show, though. More in line with the tone we'll be going forward with, the show gives us the title card, then a set of voiceovers. Both of them are diary entries. Stefan's goes as follows. "I shouldn't have come home. I know the risk, but I had no choice. I have to know her." We don't get a clear glimpse of him yet, just the back of him as he stares at the sunrise from the roof. Then the vague outline of him as he jumps off of the roof as casually as a normal person might jump off a swing set. How is this vampire not burning up in the sunlight, you might ask? Don't worry, we'll get to that later on. The more pressing question at the moment is, Who is this girl that Stefan is taking all of these risks just to get to know? Well, listeners, she just so happens to be our main character and the other voiceover we get. Elena Gilbert is sat at her window seat, the morning rays streaming down on her as she writes, "Dear Diary, today will be different. It has to be. I will smile and it will be believable. My smile will say, I'm fine, thank you. Yes, I feel much better. I will no longer be the sad little girl who lost her parents. I will start fresh, be someone new. It's the only way I'll make it through." A little heavy-handed as a method to deliver us this information, and a lot melodramatic, but it's pretty believable for something a 17-year-old going through it would write the morning before starting the new school year. She stands in front of her vanity, practicing the mask she'll have to wear for the rest of the day, before heading downstairs and letting us meet her surviving family members. Jenna, a frazzled grad student somewhere in her mid to late 20s, is the aunt and legal guardian of Elena and Elena's younger brother Jeremy. It's obvious that she's having a hard time adjusting to her new role. She doesn't really know what to be sending them off with, hasn't even made breakfast, and is running late for a meeting with her thesis advisor. But she means well. Jeremy, on the other hand, is checked the hell out. Being a 15-year-old in the middle of a mood swing is bad enough, without the recent death of their parents weighing on him. Elena asks him if he's doing okay, but he can only roll his eyes over his morning coffee and warn her not to start before walking off. In the background of the scene, there's a missing persons report on the TV for Brooke and Darren, so they haven't been forgotten about, even though we haven't found out who their killer is yet. Elena catches a ride to school from her best friend Bonnie, a deeply underrated and underutilized character in my opinion. Bonnie's telling Elena that her grandma has been telling her that she's psychic, and that their ancestors were from Salem. All this with a smile of disbelief on her face. It's more likely to her that her grandma's crazy or drunk than it is that she could be a witch. None of this is reaching Elena, though. She's staring out the window, spacing out, so much so that Bonnie has to snap her out of it. Back into the conversation, Elena says if Bonnie really is psychic, she should predict something about her. 2 words into her prediction, after only saying, "I see," a huge crow hits the windshield of the car, and Bonnie has to bring them to an abrupt stop. This obviously rattles Elena. Understandably, too. Not only did she lose her parents in a car accident, but she was also in the car when it happened. While Bonnie is super apologetic, Elena brushes it off with the idea that she can't be afraid of cars for the rest of her life. Sort of just pushing forward, like she's been for a while now. Once they both have a moment to breathe, Bonnie gives Elena the rest of her prediction. She says, "I predict this year is going to be kick-ass, and I predict all the sad and dark times are over, and you are going to be beyond happy." Which, if you take it for what it is a super sweet moment. Getting to see Bonnie pull out exactly what she knows will bring a smile to Elena's face. But, if you know anything about the Vampire Diaries, it is the exact opposite of how their lives are going to go for the next 8 seasons. Like, strap in, girls. It's going to be a long ride. As they drive off, the camera pulls back to reveal that big black crow that flew in front of the car, perched on top of a nearby sign, just kind of sitting and watching. Remember him. We'll be seeing this crow again later. In the halls of Mystic Falls High School, we are introduced to a few characters. One of them is Matt Donovan, star quarterback of the Mystic Falls Timberwolves, and more importantly, Elena's ex-boyfriend. Listen, I do not like this boy, but until the actual episodes where he pisses me off come up, I will refrain from talking shit as much as I can. Back to what he's doing. Matt is standing in his locker, staring across the hall at Elena with this sad sack look on his face. She waves at him, much nicer than I would be, and he just gets his stuff out of the locker and storms off. This bums Elena out. Before they were a couple, she and Matt started off as childhood friends, so this switch is clearly hard to get used to, even if she was the one who did the dumping. The other character we're introduced to is one of my favorites, Caroline Forbes. Blonde, cheer captain, type A personality. In a different show, she would be the archetypal mean girl for sure. But she is part of the friend group, She does care. So when she acts a little overly concerned to the point of insincerity about how Elena is doing, like insisting past the point of Elena trying to brush it off, it doesn't come off great. She is just a touch self-centered. But like the rest of them, she's 17. She's got time to grow. We pick up next with Elena's little brother Jeremy, who is in the yard giving pills to Matt Donovan's older sister Vicky. And where Vicky is, jock and resident douchebag Tyler Lockwood is sure to be as well. As long as it's not too embarrassing for him, that is. He's rich and from one of the town's founding families, so hooking up with Vicky, who's a stoner and working at the local grill to get by, is seen as slumming it. He and Jeremy are at each other's throats off the bat. Tyler's trying to pick a fight, cozying up to Vicky and saying shit like, "Hey, Pete Wentz called. He wants his nail polish back." Because Jeremy is what 2009's CW writers think qualifies as an emo, all decked out in a black hoodie with his nail painted. Boy is going through a phase. Or maybe just through it in general, since he's getting high and handing out pills at school. Vicky stops the guys from biting each other's faces off, telling Tyler to cool it, putting emphasis on Jeremy being Elena's little brother. That hits a nerve for Jeremy, as does watching the two of them make out in front of him. But we'll get back to this little triangle of drama later. Bonnie and Elena pause in the hall outside the office at the sight of a new student. They don't get a good look at his face, neither do we, though we can tell from previous scenes that this is Stefan. Elena says all she can see is back, and Bonnie says something that is so ridiculous, based on what I'm seeing personally. She counters with, "It's a hot back," which I just do not see. Not that Stefan isn't hot, but that there are clues from seeing the back of him to tell that he is. If you haven't seen the show, he's wearing a leather jacket, yes, but his jeans are not form-fitting at all. They don't do anything for him. Inside the office, the school secretary is telling Stefan that they don't have his records or his transcripts. He whips off his dark sunglasses to make incredibly intense eye contact with the secretary and insists that she's made a mistake, that everything she's looking for is actually there. And it goes off without a hitch. This is a skill that all vampires have, called compulsion. The further into the show, the more you learn about it. But the quick version is that a vampire just has to make eye contact with their victim and focus on the command they're giving, and their victim will follow it to the best of their abilities. Compulsion is very plot relevant and is used a ton on this show. Back in the hall, Elena spots Jeremy, and I don't know how. I guess she must have some sort of spidey sense about it. She can tell that he's high, so she follows him to the boys' bathroom to chew him out. She says she's done watching him destroy himself. It's obvious that he's been using to cope with the grief of losing their parents. Jeremy's not ready to hear any of it. In a way that makes sense with his angsty teen mood, but also in a way that's always made me sort of wonder if he might not want to deal with Elena because a small part of him has some resentment for her being involved in their parents' accident. She tries to follow Jeremy out of the bathroom and bumps right back into Mr. Hot Back himself, Stefan Salvatore. They have an awkward little meet-cute moment where they exchange heated eye contact, try to get out of each other's way while getting exactly into each other's way. You know how these things go. It clearly leaves enough of an impression on Elena to make her peek back over her shoulder once she's left the encounter. She employs the same shoulder peek when they're in history class together later. A cute little quick flash of a smile that keeps Stefan's eyes glued to her. He's not the only one that notices it, though. Matt makes an especially stinky face about it, and Bonnie sends Elena a very stoked text on a very 2000s cell phone. Speaking of very 2000s, we are serenaded by a One Republic song, which always makes me feel extremely nostalgic, while Elena takes an after-school walk down to the cemetery. Like all people who are doing well, she's sitting by her parents' grave and writing in her diary. Since this is a show that is named for the main character's diaries, I will be telling you the details of every entry. This one reads, "Dear Diary, I made it through the day. I must have said, 'I'm fine, thanks,' at least 37 times. I didn't mean it once, but no one noticed. When someone asks how are you, they really don't want an answer. She's still writing when a nearby bird call distracts her. It's a crow, not unlike the one that hit the car's windshield earlier, perched on Elena's parents' gravestone and seemingly watching her. Now, if that's not strange enough, the arrival of this crow is followed by the slow creep of fog into the graveyard. Elena gets spooked, shoos away the crow, but when she turns to pick up her bag, it's right behind her, still staring. Grabbing her bag, she hurries through the fog, picking things up into a jog when she catches a hint of a dark silhouette between the memorial statues. In her haste, she trips down a hill and scrapes her shin. When she pops back up to her feet, Stefan is somehow right there in front of her, asking if she's all right. But I'm not the only one who finds his timing suspicious. Once Elena catches her breath, her first thought is to ask Stefan if he was following her. He claims that he wasn't, that he just saw her fall and came to check on her. Elena's not buying it. He just so happened to be hanging out in a cemetery? Very convenient. Stefan is actually here visiting family, he says. And when Elena hears that, it's a very open-mouth, insert-foot moment. Her embarrassment starts her on a rambling explanation about the bird and the fog. All the while Stefan is just smiling fondly at her, amused. It's pretty cute. Not far into her nervous explanation, Elena maybe starts to realize that this isn't any less embarrassing, and abandons it to introduce herself instead. After Stefan gives her his name, Elena drops a line absolutely dripping in double meaning. She says, I know. We have history together. Girl, you don't even know the extent of how true that is. And so far, neither do we. While Stefan's being a sweetie, or maybe a little too touchy-feely this soon, depending on how you read it, and picking a leaf out of Elena's hair, she takes notice of the ring he's wearing. A large blue stone with a silver crest on it. Stefan says it's a family ring, that he's stuck with it. Is he the mysterious man that ambushed and killed that couple? Guess you gotta stick around to find out. Now, do you remember me telling you that Elena scraped her leg when she stumbled down that hill? Well, the thing is that not only was it not a big enough deal for her to have realized, but the wound isn't visible in any sort of way. I mean, she's wearing these flared leg jeans that were in style at the time that don't have a speck of blood on them. And yet, somehow Stefan senses that Elena might have hurt herself. Continuing to display supernormal behavior, he whips around at the sight of her blood, unable to face it. What the audience can see that Elena cannot is Stefan's expression. He's physically shaking, jaw clenching from all the self-control he's exhibiting, and, strangest of all, the veins around his eyes come to the surface and darken. They do on the whites of his eyes as well, becoming such a thick bloodshot web that the space around his iris looks almost inky. He warns Elena that she should go take care of her leg, but faster than she can protest, or see even, Stefan totally disappears. She doesn't see where he goes, but we find out almost immediately in the next scene. Up in his moody, dark room of the Salvatore boarding house, Stefan is scribbling away in his diary. Yes, his vampire diary. Roll credits. He writes, I lost control today. Everything I kept buried came rushing to the surface. I am simply not able to resist her. Giving us the confirmation that the her he was writing about earlier, that he's risking everything to get to know, is indeed Elena. And if that wasn't enough, the camera zooms out to reveal a simple diary bound in light green leather, engraved with the letter E. Elena's diary. She must have dropped it during the commotion in the cemetery. We switch now from Elena's romantic drama to her younger brothers. Jeremy is at the grill, unfortunately attempting to talk to Vicky during her shift, and only really succeeding in annoying her. She dodges his first try to deliver food to the table that Tyler and her brother Matt are at. Matt thanks her, but not too subtly. Vicky's only got eyes for Tyler at the moment. And if it wasn't already clear by their locked stares and flirty tone, Matt is very much alerted to the fact that his best friend is hooking up with his sister. By the way, Tyler cannot stop staring at Vicky's ass as she walks away. Like, he doesn't try at all. Even cranes his neck to watch. When Matt asks him to deny it, Tyler doesn't put an ounce of effort to say that he's not. which causes Matt to say maybe the only thing I will ever agree with him on, that Tyler is such a dick. When Vicky swings back around to get Tyler's refill, Jeremy is right back in her space, asking her what her deal is. Apparently, during the summer, they were really close, but now that school started, she's becoming distant towards him. She makes it clear that while she was thankful for the pills, he needs to stop following her around like a lost puppy. To which Jeremy responds with the line that I cannot keep a straight face about, no matter how many times I hear it. When's the last time you had sex with a puppy? He asks, somehow with a complete earnesty. Vicky shushes him, embarrassed that she, quote, deflowered Elena's kid brother. Jeremy claims it was more than that they hooked up multiple times over the summer, but Vicky blames it on them being mutually stoned at the time. And to be totally honest, she's worried it will affect what she has going on with Tyler. Obviously, Jeremy doesn't take that well. It's plain as anyone with eyes can see that Tyler is a major asshole. He also points out that Tyler's only hanging out with Vicky for sex. Shoving her way out of the conversation entirely, Vicky fires back, isn't that what Jeremy wants her for? We haven't seen enough of their dynamic to know whether that's true or not yet. Look, I will be the first to admit that Jeremy is coming off irritating at best and pushy at worst. And Vicky doesn't owe him anything, of course. If she says they're done, they're done. But I'm also a rare Jeremy defender. I do feel bad for him. Being the hookup that someone is ashamed of is painful at any age, but is an especially hard blow at 15. He also probably used the happiness he was feeling with Vicky as a pretty big band-aid for the pain of losing his parents. He's coping in the most self-destructive of ways. This won't be the last time either. Seems like almost everyone is at the grill tonight. Drink in hand, Caroline is running down the lengthy list of facts she's managed to gather on Stefan, who she seems quite taken by. They go as follows. He lives with his uncle up at the old Salvatore boarding house. He hasn't lived here since he was a kid, military family, so they moved around a lot. He's a Gemini, and his favorite color is blue. Just so happens she is wearing a cute little midnight blue blouse right at this moment. Bonnie just seems in total disbelief that Caroline was able to get that much info on the new boy in one day. But Caroline corrects her. She got all that information between third and fourth period. Then dreamily adds that they're planning a June wedding, which is super funny for a reason that I'll have to keep in my pocket for many, many seasons. On her way out to meet Bonnie at the grill, Elena just so happens to find Stefan at her door. He's there to say sorry for disappearing earlier and to give Elena her diary back. Right off the bat, he assures Elena that he didn't read it. She asks why not. Other people probably would have. He says he didn't read hers because he wouldn't want anyone to read his. The fact that he keeps a journal, Elena's word for it, not mine, is clearly surprising and endearing to her. Stefan's reasoning for keeping one is that he writes down what he needs to remember. Memories are too important to lose. With the added context that he's a vampire, this gives that thought even more weight. There's a century of memories he needs to keep track of at least. Before Elena ducks back into the house to put away her journal, she doesn't exactly invite Stefan in per se, but says that he doesn't have to stay out there. Without definite permission, he's left trapped at the doorway, just sort of lingering and peeking awkwardly into the house. Not unlike me in most social situations. Trying to play off the weirdness when she comes back, Stefan asks if Elena was about to go somewhere, and she ends up inviting him to the grill. Hot spot of the night. Of the show, really. I can't tell you how many events happen in that freaking grill. Just before the gang's all together, Matt is questioning Bonnie about how Elena's doing, if she said anything about him, etc. I couldn't possibly think of a funnier way to follow up this conversation than the writers did by having Elena walk in with Stefan at this very moment while Katy Perry's Thinking of You blares in the background and the whole friend group watches on like they're at a zoo exhibit. Matt does go to introduce himself to Stefan, but I personally don't take it in good faith because it reads as a sort of trying to mark his former territory sort of thing. Luckily, we move past that quickly to Elena bringing Stefan to the table so the girls can get to know him better. We learn that he has something else in common with Elena, other than keeping a journal. He also lost his parents. Put a bookmark on this. When Elena asks if he has any siblings, Stefan's answer is, "None that I talk to." We will find out more about this later in the episode. In an attempt to insert herself back into the conversation, Caroline brings up the back-to-school party at the falls tomorrow. Unfortunately for her, Stefan immediately turns to Elena to ask if she'll be going. Bonnie volunteers Elena to be there too. They share this little look. All in front of Caroline's salad. Looks like she's going to have to push back that June wedding. Back at the Salvatore boarding house, Stefan's uncle, Zach, who, since we know Stefan is a vampire, I'll just tell you straight up, is actually human, and down the family line is Stefan's nephew, storms into Stefan's room with the most recent newspaper. He, like some of the clues so far have led us to believe, thinks that Stefan is responsible for the deaths of the couple from the beginning of the episode. Stefan insists that it was an animal attack, and when Zach counters that he understands the methods of roughing bodies up to make them look less suspicious, Stefan doubles down that it wasn't him, that he has his urges under control. I need you to understand that this scene is underscored by Placebo's cover of Running Up That Hill. So when Zach is telling him he doesn't belong here anymore and Stefan gets all existential and says, "Where do I belong?" it very much fits in the overly moody vibe. So much so that it carries over as Stefan, alone now, makes his way over to his shelves. They're packed full with journals. So many they go layers deep, some stacked on their sides. Years and years of memories to keep. But it doesn't take Stefan more than a second to find the one he's looking for. Thick and worn, wrapped closed by a cord, no year on the side like the others. He cracks it open carefully to a picture dated 1864. A woman whose appearance is shocking, to say the least. Not because of anything wrong with her. No, she's beautiful. The problem is that she's scarily similar to a character we've already met. Same dark hair, same big dark doe eyes, same exact face as Elena Gilbert, but on a different woman from a different time period. Who is this woman, and what connection does she have to Elena? That is not answered in this next scene, however. Sorry. It does have important information regarding what was happening in Mystic Falls in the 1800s, though, so I will be touching on it a little. Non-history related facts we learned in their history class is that their teacher, Mr. Tanner, is a complete dick. He targets Bonnie for an answer and makes sure to call her stupid over her jokey response. He makes dumb jock digs at Matt. He lets Elena know that he's not going easy on her anymore because enough time has passed since her parents' death. Even picks a fight with Stefan about historical accuracies of events that Stefan himself has lived through, a losing battle. If we were in a horror movie, Mr. Tanner would be dying very violently by the next act for sure. What you need to know history-wise from this scene is that the Battle of Willow Creek was a significant fight that took place at the end of the Civil War in Mystic Falls. Not counting the local civilians, it resulted in 346 casualties. The civilian casualties are the most important thing to remark about that event, though. It's said that the Confederate soldiers thought that the church was being used to house weapons, so they fired on it, killing 27 innocent people inside. They will be expanded upon throughout the season. We head over now to the falls, that the Mystic Falls is presumably named for, to check up on how everybody's enjoying their back-to-school party. Stefan uses his vampire super hearing to try to locate Elena among the crowd. Things could stray into creepy territory here, but he only listens long enough to accidentally pick up a snippet of Bonnie gently teasing Elena, intimating that he's cute, before trying to head over. One step, though, and his path is blocked by a very excited Caroline who offers to get him a drink. While waiting for the sidetracked Stefan, Bonnie jokingly attempts to use an empty bottle to channel where Stefan might be, at Elena's little quip that she is the psychic one. Upon touching the bottle, Bonnie's eyes go wide, and her mouth falls open, seemingly seeing something and scared of whatever that something may be. She says when she and Elena made contact through the bottle, she saw a crow, fog, and a man, like earlier in the cemetery. Like with her denial of her grandmother's stories, Bonnie claims that she's just drunk, that there's nothing psychic going on. Then she dismisses herself for a refill. Perfect time for Stefan to show up. Of course, it's so quick it seems like he's coming out of nowhere again. The two of them even joke about it. Elena still looks a bit rattled, and when Stefan asks about it, she almost tells him about Bonnie's weird vision, but decides to put it aside because all that really matters is that he's here now. They take a walk, getting to know each other better. Elena opens up to Stefan about the crash, how her parents' car drove off Wickery Bridge with her in the back seat, and she was the only one of the three of them to survive. Stefan promises her that she won't be sad forever, which, unfortunately, like Bonnie's prediction earlier, isn't entirely true going off the way this show pans out. Speaking of Bonnie, Stefan remarks on what a good friend Bonnie seems to be to Elena. That always makes me happy to hear. I am less happy to report that Matt is staring at them across the party with a sour look. Stefan also notices this, prompting a conversation about his and Elena's relationship. She tells Stefan that she and Matt were the kind of childhood friends that sort of owed it to each other to explore if there was more there, and of course, her parents dying changed things, but there was always something integral missing there. Elena can't quite find the right word for it. Stefan suggests that passion was the missing piece, and that really clicks with her. Just the fact that he was able to pick that up from the way she was talking gives a sense that Stefan might understand her a little more deeply than anybody before him. This connection between them also stirs up the same hunger response that Stefan exhibited the other day at the scent of Elena's blood. The difference is, this time, Elena catches a glimpse. Luckily for Stefan, it's dark enough out that he's able to explain it away as having something in his eye. He immediately excuses himself to go get them refills. While all of this is happening, Jeremy's triangle of drama has also been unfolding. He is partaking in some especially underage drinking, like everyone else, but sort of watching the party from afar. Mostly just Vicky and Tyler, if we're being real. When they take off into the tree line together, Jeremy heads in the same direction. Good thing, too, because Tyler doesn't care much that Vicky is in the mood to hook up at the moment, and he tries to force himself on her. Before anything more happens, Jeremy tells him off, and when Tyler tries to pick a fight about it, Vicky seconds the motion. Finally taking the hint, Tyler leaves, not without firing off an asshole remark first, of course. What else would you expect? Sadly, Vicky does defend Tyler a bit to Jeremy after. She claims that she didn't need his help, and that Tyler was just drunk. Jeremy shoots back that he's drunk, and he's not trying anything like that on her. But Vicky says Jeremy is worse than Tyler, because Jeremy actually pretends to give a shit about her, and will make her feel like he wants to know everything about her, before he inevitably tosses her aside. He tries to dispute that, but Vicky doesn't want to hear it, and takes off into the woods. Not a safe place to be wandering alone, considering those missing persons reports. Fog starts to roll in behind Vicky. She hears something behind her and calls out, thinking it's Jeremy. When she doesn't get an answer, she continues forward, pausing again when we see a dark figure appear behind her. The man vanishes the moment she turns around, leaving Vicky with the feeling of being watched, but not with enough signs to know that where she should really be looking is behind her. In a flash, the figure grabs her, and the screen goes black. With Stefan gone for drinks, Elena is left by herself long enough to be approached by Matt. He brings up her reasoning for their breakup being that she needed time alone, but that she doesn't look all that alone tonight. Matt wants her to know that he still believes in them, and that he'll wait for her. Please, man, just give it up. Conspicuous by his absence, Stefan steps out of the forest. What was he doing there? Who knows? And goes to reconvene with Elena, but gets ambushed by Caroline for the second time that night. She invites him to go on a walk with her down to the falls, visibly drunk and very flirty. Stefan doesn't want to lead her on, so he apologizes and turns her down. Elena teasingly calls Caroline's flirting attempt an abduction when Stefan returns. Despite the weird vibe shift when Stefan ran off, they seem to be back to their easygoing tone. That doesn't last too long, though. Elena notices Jeremy stumbling around, bottle in hand, and chases off after him into the woods. He's ignoring her calling after him, too drunk and too pissed off to keep his footing, and ends up tripping and falling right onto Vicky Donovan. Her throat's torn and she's unconscious, pretty much unresponsive until Jeremy tries to examine her neck. Elena and Jeremy carry her back to the party, where Matt and Tyler shoo away the crowd gathering and ask for an ambulance to be called. In the crowd that's gathered, Stefan is watching with a concerned expression. Matt glances up briefly to notice Stefan's interest in the scene, and Stefan backs off through the sea of people. And that looks absolutely awful. New guy comes to town the same week that a couple goes missing and a girl he goes to school with gets attacked. There's one too many coincidences adding up against Stefan's case. He runs back to the boarding house and with a renewed sense of certainty tells Zach that someone was attacked tonight, but that it wasn't him. Who was it then? Up in his room, the door to Stefan's balcony is wide open. A crow flies in right past him, landing on a ceiling beam. Unlike any of the other victims of the mysterious figure, when Stefan turns around to find the man behind him, he doesn't seem all that surprised. With his jaw set, he gives us the name of our silhouetted killer, Damon. Damon is finally revealed to us now, outfitted in a black leather jacket and the cheesiest, smuggest smirk you've ever seen. He delivers us what might be his most iconic line. Hello, brother. Now, Stefan makes a remark about, doesn't Damon think the bird is over the top? And I need you to allow me a moment to pause from the meat of this scene to talk about just how silly this crow stuff is. It's leftover lore from the book that vampires are able to control certain kinds of birds, and sometimes the weather, like the fog. But partway into the season, they dropped this idea and never returned to it again. Just straight up said, yeah, this is stupid. Forget about it. Anyway, back to the point. Stefan is questioning Damon. When did he get here? Why is he seeing him again after 15 years? Why is he here? Damon is pretty avoidant to all this, very flamboyant, very flippant, rifling through Stefan's belongings and throwing out all these quips about Stefan's looks improving, how he's glad it's not the 90s anymore because Stefan needs to remember to stay away from fads. He's obviously trying to poke holes in Stefan's self-restraint. It's working too. Leaving Vicky alive was messy of Damon. Causes more problems for Stefan than himself, because Stefan is the one keeping up appearances. Instead of answering why he's here now, specifically, Damon brings up Elena. With every word, every mention of her, he's chipping away at Stefan's control piece by piece. Damon also mixes those jabs with questioning how long it's been since Stefan drank human blood. He gets all up in Stefan's face, pushing and slapping him around, trying to rile him up to the point of snapping, by offering that they find a couple of girls to eat together. Or even better, he says, they could share Elena. That's the tipping point for Stefan. Veins popping, fangs out, he lunges for Damon, sending both of them flying out the window, down to the ground floor. Stefan's the only one who takes any real damage for the fall, though. A diet of only animal blood leaves vampires significantly weaker, and makes it take longer for them to heal. You'd think Damon might be a little pissed that Stefan pushed him out a window, but that's really just their usual dynamic, and he's way more amused by the whole display of anger. Stefan's still seething, though, of course. Wherever Damon goes, people die, he says, but that can't happen here. He won't allow it. Haven't they fought enough over the years? Not enough, according to Damon. He promised Stefan an eternity of misery, and he intends to make good on that. Starting with, in this moment, stealing Stefan's ring. You see, both of their rings are what this show calls daylight rings. Rings spelled by witches, so that the vampire that wears them is able to walk in the sunlight without turning into a crisp. Without his, there's no way Stefan can keep living a normal life and keep up the charade that he's human. Damon only holds on to it long enough to taunt Stefan, bait him in, then throw him across the yard as a show of the extra strength that he has over Stefan. Guess we know now why Stefan's answer to whether he has any siblings was none that he talks to. Everyone else goes off on their own ways after the attack on Vicky. Matt in the ambulance with her, Bonnie and Caroline to the grill to sober up. Elena checks in with Jeremy, who cares so little about anything at the moment that he's just straight up drinking in sight of the police. She wants to get through to him that she understands why he's acting like this, but that other people won't care because they've already moved on. She says he should try moving on too. Jeremy snaps back right away, essentially implying how hypocritical Elena is being. She spends her free time writing in the cemetery because she can't let go of their parents. She hasn't moved on, she's just hiding it. At the grill, Bonnie and Caroline are slamming back coffee, trying to sober up. After the rejection from Stefan, Caroline is having a hell of a time. It's made her compare herself to Elena, and she doesn't like what she thinks she's realizing. The guys she wants never want her, but Elena, who doesn't even have to try, always says the right thing, is always the one who is picked. This whole moment is really heartbreakingly relatable. I think we've all had a moment in our lives where we look at how we stack up to a friend of ours and find ourselves lacking, and use that to drag ourselves down further. It's especially tough because society unfortunately encourages women pitting themselves against each other a lot of the time. Caroline being in such a vulnerable place is only made that much worse by the fact that it's followed up by her meeting eyes with Damon across the grill, exchanging a flirty look. He's the absolute last thing she needs right now. At the hospital, Vicky wakes up, still scared and barely able to talk, but she clearly thinks that what she has to tell Matt is important enough to try. And it's one single word: vampire. I guess Damon's plan to dredge up more mess in town for Stefan is going pretty well so far. Back home, Elena is ending the night by writing in her diary. She writes, "Dear Diary, I couldn't have been more wrong. I thought that I could smile and nod my way through it, pretend like it would all be okay." This is interwoven with another one of Stefan's entries as well. He writes, "I had a plan. I wanted to change who I was, create a life as someone new, someone without the past." "Without the pain," Elena's writing answers. Then their voices overlap to say together, "someone alive." "But it's not that easy," Elena's voice chimes in alone. "The bad things stay with you. They follow you," Stefan's voiceover says. "You can't escape them as much as you want to." That line is emphasized by a lingering shot of Damon specifically. They switch back to Elena, writing, "All you can do is be ready for the good, so when it comes, you invite it in, because you need it. I need it." As cheesy and in-your-face as it is, I do think the comparison of Elena's grief and Stefan's inability to live a human life, both weighing them down like weights around their necks, and each other's presence being what the other needs to lighten that, is pretty sweet. Elena glances up from her diary to see Stefan standing out front, and runs downstairs to get the door. He apologizes for how late it is, but he needed to know if she was okay. She says that's all anyone's been asking her for months now. Whenever they ask, she tells them she'll be fine. He wants to know if Elena ever means it. She tells Stefan to ask her tomorrow, then officially invites him into her house, finally breaking that barrier, and giving us a little hopeful moment to linger on. And that brings us to the close of the first episode of The Vampire Diaries. Special thank you to the friend of the pod, Elle. It's cliche to say, "What would I do without you?" But in this case, it really is the truth. I never would imagine myself as someone who could be brave enough to start a podcast, but you could, so I had to make it come true. To everyone else that made it to the end with me, thank you for sticking around. It was really fun to get to do a rundown of this episode I've watched way too many times. I hope you'll join me again for the next